When you see the aftermath of a big rig crash on the highway, it's a huge scene. But what happens after the road is cleared? Well, that's where a really complex legal journey begins. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and walk through exactly what goes down step by step in this whole high-stakes process.
So what really happens after a truck crash? You might think it all leads straight to a dramatic courtroom battle, right? But the truth is, most of the action, we're talking digital detective work, high-stakes legal chess moves, and intense negotiations, it all happens way before a judge or jury ever gets involved. Let's break down exactly how this whole thing unfolds. All right, we've broken this whole journey down into 5 main stages. First, we'll go from the crash itself to building a case. Then we'll look at a really interesting legal maneuver called the Stowers power play. After that, it's the discovery showdown, where everyone has to show their cards. Then we'll see how they try to negotiate a resolution, and finally, what happens when it all comes down to a jury. That's our roadmap for today.
Okay, let's dive into stage 1, from crash to case. You have to think of this as building the foundation for the entire lawsuit. And that foundation, it's all built on facts, which means it starts with a really deep investigation.
And look, this isn't some old-school detective work with a magnifying glass, okay? Today's accident investigations are more like a high-tech hunt for digital breadcrumbs. The goal isn't just to figure out what happened, but more importantly, why it happened. You're trying to identify every single person or company that could be responsible. We're talking the driver, the trucking company, maybe even the people who made the truck's parts.
It's honestly kind of mind-blowing how much data you can get from a modern truck. I mean, you've got the black box, right, that tracks things like speed and when the brakes were hit. Then there's the electronic logging device, or ELD. This thing is often the smoking gun because it shows exactly how long that driver was on the road. If they were driving past the legal limit, well, that points straight to fatigue. And on top of that, you have GPS data, dash cams, driver's work history. I mean, every single piece is another clue that helps build a really clear picture of what went down.
Okay, so once all that evidence is gathered, the case moves into a really fascinating stage. This is what's known as the Stowers power play. Now, this is a pretty high-stakes legal move that's specific to Texas law, and trust me, it can totally change the entire game.
Now, the key thing to understand here is this isn't just some polite letter asking for money. No. It's a calculated, strategic chess move. It takes all that evidence we just talked about and uses it to paint a picture of undeniable fault. And the whole point? It's designed to put the insurance company in a really tight corner.
So here's what makes the Stowers Demand so incredibly powerful. It's a formal offer to settle the case for the insurance policy's maximum limit. Let's say that's $1 million. The demand says, give us the $1 million and we'll walk away. Now, if the insurance company rejects that offer and the case goes to trial, and the jury comes back with a verdict for, say, $5 million, well, the insurance company could be on the hook for the entire $5 million, even though it's way over the policy limit. It's a huge gamble for them, and it creates this intense pressure to just settle the case right then and there.
Okay, so let's say the Stowers demand doesn't lead to a settlement. Well, now we enter what's called the discovery showdown. This is the point where things get really official. The lawsuit is filed, and now, by law, both sides have to put all their cards on the table. No more hiding anything.
So this whole process gets kicked off when a formal document called an original petition is filed. You can think of this as the official starting gun for the lawsuit. And the second that gun goes off, it triggers this legally required process called discovery. And yeah, this is the phase where secrets are off the table. Both sides have to show their hand.
And during discovery, you get this massive exchange of internal information. We're talking about digging through the company's private emails, looking at truck maintenance logs that might show they were cutting corners, checking out the driver's entire work history, and poring over company safety audits. This is also when depositions happen, which are basically formal, sworn interviews where all the key people have to testify under oath.
And that really gets to the heart of it. A deposition isn't just a casual chat. Not at all. It's a formal, legally binding interrogation. This is where people like the truck driver or the company safety director have to sit down and answer tough questions, all under oath. And believe me, what they say in that room can absolutely make or break the entire case.
All right, so after all the secrets have been revealed in discovery, with all the cards on the table, both sides come to this huge crossroads. This is the moment for negotiating a resolution. The big question is, do they cut a deal right now, or do they lawyer up and prepare for an all-out war in the courtroom?
And this is a really tough strategic choice. You know, settling the case is way faster, it's almost always cheaper, and most importantly, it gives you a guaranteed outcome. You know exactly what you're getting. A trial, on the other hand, well, That's a long, expensive, and completely unpredictable gamble. You're literally rolling the dice and leaving the final decision up to a jury.
A lot of times, these negotiations take place in a formal setting called mediation. The best way to think of it is a confidential, super high-stakes meeting. Both sides get together with a neutral person, a mediator, who helps them look at all the evidence, weigh the risks of going to trial, and feel that Stowers pressure we talked about earlier. The whole goal is to find some middle ground and get a settlement done so nobody has to go to court.
But what if no deal can be reached? Then we get to the final, ultimate stage. The jury decides. This is it, the final showdown. The case goes into open court, and a group of everyday citizens gets to hear everything and make the final, binding call.
So how exactly does a jury in Texas make this decision? They have to follow a legal rule called Proportionate Responsibility. And here's what's so important about that. The jury isn't just giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down, guilty or not guilty. Nope. Their job is to assign a specific percentage of the blame to every single person or company involved in that crash.
So, for example, a jury could look at all the evidence and say, okay, we think the trucking company is 65% to blame because of their sloppy maintenance. The truck driver, well, they're 25% to blame for their actions. And hey, that other car involved? We think they're 10% responsible. And this breakdown isn't just for show. It directly determines who has to pay what share of the final verdict.
And at the end of the day, that jury verdict is the finish line. It's the moment when all that digital data, all the sworn testimony, all the expert opinions and legal arguments, it all gets boiled down into one final public and legally binding decision. This is where that public accountability really happens.
Which kind of brings us to a really interesting final thought, right? After seeing the insane amount of investigation, the clever legal power plays, and all the high-stakes negotiating that goes on behind the scenes, it really makes you wonder. With everything that happens before a trial, is the courtroom really the main event? Or is it just the last scene in a much, much longer play?